Ex-wife cheated with my golden child brother and had his baby. Now my hateful family is begging me for money after my promotion. Hey Reddit. I 32M grew up in a family that never seemed to like me much. My parents blatantly favored my younger brother, Ethan 28M, the golden child. He got the best of everything: support, attention, and endless praise, while I was constantly criticized and made to feel like the family's punching bag. No matter what I achieved, it was never enough. Ethan, meanwhile, could do no wrong. Even when he messed up, they'd find a way to blame me for it. Despite this dynamic, I still cared for my family and tried to maintain some kind of relationship with them. I didn't want to be the bitter older sibling. I worked hard to build a stable life for myself, landing a good job and eventually meeting my ex-wife, Sophie 30F. Sophie and I got married when I was 26, and at first, everything seemed great. She was supportive, kind, and seemed to love me for who I was. But as time went on, cracks began to show. Sophie and Ethan always got along a little too well. She'd laugh at his jokes more than mine, hang on his every word, and defend him in arguments even when he was clearly in the wrong. I told myself I was overthinking it. After all, he was my brother, and I wanted to believe he wouldn't betray me like that. But 2 years into our marriage, I found out the truth in the worst possible way. I came home early one day to find Sophie and Ethan together in our bed. It was like a scene out of a nightmare. I didn't even yell or cry, I just stood there, frozen, as Sophie tried to explain and Ethan looked at me with his smug, guiltless face. Apparently, they'd been seeing each other behind my back for over a year. To make matters worse, Sophie was pregnant. And no, the baby wasn't mine. It was Ethan's. The divorce was quick and messy. Sophie and Ethan didn't even try to deny their relationship. My parents, instead of supporting me, took Ethan's side. They told me I was being too dramatic and should be happy for them because they were in love. I was completely cut off from my family. They made it clear that I was expendable, and Ethan was their priority. It hurt, but I used that pain as motivation to move forward. Fast forward a few years, and things have turned around for me. I threw myself into work and got promoted to a high-level position at my company. I'm now making 6 figures, living in a beautiful home, and I have a supportive girlfriend who knows about my past but doesn't judge me for it. Life was finally starting to feel stable again until my family decided to show up. A few weeks ago, I got a call from my mom. At first, I thought it was a butt dial because we hadn't spoken in years. But no, she wanted to catch up. She spent about 5 minutes pretending to care about my life before she cut to the chase. Ethan was in financial trouble. His business had failed, and he had a baby with Sophie, of course, to take care of. They were struggling to pay their bills, and my parents had used up their savings to bail him out once already. Now they wanted me to help. I couldn't believe the audacity. After everything they did to me, they had the nerve to ask me for money? I told my mom no and hung up, but it didn't stop there. Ethan called me himself a few days later, trying to guilt-trip me by saying he was my brother and I should help family out. I told him family doesn't stab each other in the back, and he could go ask someone else. Since then, my parents have been blowing up my phone with texts and voicemails, calling me selfish and ungrateful. Update. After my initial post, a lot of people advised me to go no contact and block my family entirely. I was seriously considering it, but before I could, something else happened. My dad showed up at my workplace. I was in the middle of a meeting when I got a text from reception saying a man claiming to be my father was there to see me. I hadn't seen him in person since the divorce, so I was caught off guard. Against my better judgment, I decided to meet with him. He looked older and more worn out than I remembered, but his attitude hadn't changed. He started by trying to guilt me, saying that Ethan was struggling to provide for his family and that as his older brother, it was my responsibility to help. When I didn't respond, he switched tactics, telling me how proud he was of me for my success and that I was in a position to give back. That's when I lost it. I told him that I owed him, Ethan, and the rest of the family absolutely nothing. I reminded him of how they treated me growing up, how they abandoned me during my divorce, and how they made it clear I wasn't worth their time or effort. I said that they made their bed when they chose Ethan over me, and now they could lie in it. He tried to argue, but I walked away. Later that day, I blocked all of their numbers. In the days following the confrontation, I felt a mix of emotions. A part of me wondered if I'd been too harsh, but I quickly shut that thought down. My therapist helped me understand that guilt was a tool my family had always used to control me, and standing firm wasn't cruel, it was necessary. For the first time, I began to feel the weight of their manipulation lifting off my shoulders. Of course, my family didn't give up easily. They started leaving voicemails from different numbers, often with emotional pleas that were impossible to ignore. One voicemail from my mom stuck with me: "If you don't help Ethan now, you'll regret it when we're gone." It was hard to hear, but I reminded myself that their version of help had always come at the cost of my peace. Another update. Going no contact has been a blessing. For the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe without their toxicity hanging over me. My girlfriend has been incredibly supportive, reminding me that I made the right decision. I've also started seeing a therapist to work through the lingering resentment I have toward my family. It's been eye-opening to realize just how much their favoritism and neglect shaped my self-esteem. That being said, my family isn't giving up easily. They've started reaching out to mutual friends and distant relatives, trying to pressure me into helping Ethan. One of my cousins even called me, saying my parents were telling everyone that I was a heartless, greedy person who abandoned his family in their time of need. Thankfully, most of my extended family knows the truth and supports me, but it's still exhausting to deal with. I've also learned some unsettling things about Ethan. Through mutual connections, I found out that his financial troubles weren't just due to bad luck. He'd made some reckless business decisions, including gambling away a significant portion of his savings. It made me even angrier to think they expected me to clean up his mess after all he'd done to me. Sophie, unsurprisingly, hasn't changed either. She apparently spends most of her time complaining about their situation on social media, painting herself as a victim. Despite the drama, I'm starting to feel more empowered. Cutting off toxic family isn't easy, but every day I remind myself that I deserve peace and happiness. My girlfriend and I are planning a trip soon, something I never would have done when I was stuck in their web of guilt and obligation. It's liberating to finally put myself first. Final update. It's been a few months since I went no contact, and I can finally say that I feel at peace. My family has stopped trying to reach out, probably because they've realized I'm not going to budge. I've made it clear to everyone in my life that my boundaries are non-negotiable, and it's been liberating to prioritize my own happiness for once. As for Ethan and Sophie, I've heard through the grapevine that their financial situation has only gotten worse. Ethan lost his house, and Sophie supposedly left him to move back in with her parents. Part of me feels a tiny bit of schadenfreude, but mostly, I just feel relieved that their mess is no longer my problem. Looking back, I'm proud of how far I've come. I went from being the scapegoat of my family to building a life I'm genuinely proud of. Cutting ties with them wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is walk away, and that's exactly what I've done. A surprising twist came recently when a mutual friend reached out to me. They told me Ethan is now trying to repair his relationships with others he's wronged in the past, but he still hasn't taken accountability for what he did to me. It's ironic, really. He wants forgiveness, but only on his terms. I've made it clear I'm not interested in any reconciliation. My life is now focused on things that truly matter: my career, my relationship, and my well-being. I've started picking up hobbies I neglected during the years I was trying to win my family's approval, and I feel more fulfilled than ever. It's a strange but beautiful feeling to finally be free.